there are cars, and then there are legends. The 1967 Pontiac GTO is one of those rare creations that transcends the ordinary definition of an automobile. It's more than steel, glass, and rubber put together on an assembly line. It's a symbol of an era when America's car culture was surging with confidence, ambition, and horsepower. This particular 1967 GTO tells a story that begins in the industrial heart of Ohio, where it was born and stretches across decades, eventually finding its way to the sunlit boulevards of Southern California, where it spent 25 years of its life under the careful stewardship of an owner who knew what treasure sat in his garage. The GTO's origin story itself is worthy of retelling because without it, the appreciation for this car's authenticity would feel incomplete. Pontiac had been building solid cars throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, but by 1964, something new was brewing in the American automotive landscape. Young drivers wanted power, style, and an affordable way to feel the thrill of racing down a boulevard with confidence. Pontiac's engineers, most notably John DeLorean, who would later become a household name for both innovation and controversy, took the midsize Tempest and gave it something no one else had dared to do so boldly: a massive 389 cubic inch V8 stuffed under the hood. That was the birth of the GTO, and many historians argue it was the birth of the muscle car era itself. By the time 1967 rolled around, the GTO had matured into a refined beast. Carried more than raw power, it carried presence. Its stacked headlights, muscular body lines, and distinctive split grille gave it an identity that could never be mistaken for anything else. This was a car that made a statement before it even started its engine. Buyers who walked into Pontiac showrooms that year were not just shopping for transportation. They were buying into a movement, a lifestyle defined by rebellion, freedom, and speed. This particular GTO left its Ohio birthplace with specifications that would make any enthusiast smile. Under its hood, the numbers-matching 400 cubic inch motor was paired with a Rochester 4-barrel carburetor, a setup that offered both raw torque and responsive acceleration. Unlike many cars of its day that were driven hard, modified recklessly, or simply worn down by time, this one remained true to its factory DNA. That originality matters because in today's collector world, there's an undeniable premium placed on cars that still carry their authentic engines and transmissions. Its Muncie 4-speed manual gearbox was more than just a transmission. It was a rite of passage for anyone who ever wanted to feel what driving was truly about. The act of grabbing the shifter, pressing the clutch, and rowing through the gears connected the driver to the car in a way that modern automatics could never replicate. In the GTO, every shift was a conversation between man and machine, every acceleration a reminder of what American engineering could achieve at its peak. But what truly sets this car apart is not just its mechanical pedigree, it's the way it has been preserved. Documented low mileage tells the first chapter of that story. Just 65,900 miles since new. To put that into perspective, many cars today log that kind of distance in just 4 or 5 years. This GTO spread those miles out over nearly 6 decades, with only 6,000 miles added in the last 42 years. Of those, just 3,000 came during its 25-year stay in Southern California, where it was driven sparingly to car shows, admired by enthusiasts, and carefully maintained so that its beauty never faded. The second chapter of its preservation story can be seen in the bodywork. Unlike many muscle cars that went through hard lives of drag racing, weather exposure, or careless restorations, this one retains its original body panels. The alignment is tight and clean, doors, fenders, trunk, and hood line up with precision, evidence that the car has never suffered the indignity of neglect or major collision. The paint is another testament to care. It gleams with a deep, lustrous shine that would stop passers-by in their tracks. It's the kind of shine that doesn't just reflect light but reflects decades of devotion. And then there's the simplicity of the build. This GTO was crafted for enthusiasts who wanted the raw essence of muscle cars, not a cushioned ride filled with unnecessary luxuries. Power steering was the only convenience added, making the car easier to maneuver without compromising its pure driving spirit. No power brakes, no air conditioning, no distracting extras. Just the honest rumble of a V8 and the feel of the open road beneath your hands. Southern California was the perfect home for such a car. In that sun-soaked environment, surrounded by a culture that revered cruising, car shows, and weekend meets, the GTO fit right in. For 25 years, it became part of that landscape, driven just enough to keep it alive but never so much that it risked losing its authenticity. Its owner understood that a car like this was more than just metal. It was history on wheels. Every time it was brought to a car show, it wasn't just another entry. It was a crowd pleaser, a reminder to younger generations of what true American muscle looked and felt like. To the untrained eye, it might seem like just another classic car, polished and well-kept. But to those who know, who understand the nuances of Pontiac's golden era, this GTO is something special. It's a survivor, a car that resisted the temptations of modifications, resisted the wear and tear of careless ownership, and resisted time itself. The result is a machine that stands as close to the 1967 showroom experience as one could hope to find today. The story of this GTO is not just about where it has been, but also about what it represents. It stands as a chapter in the greater story of the American muscle car, a symbol of when Detroit was at its most daring, producing vehicles that could thrill drivers not just with speed, but with soul. Owning such a car is not simply about possession. It is about stewardship, carrying forward a piece of history so that it can be appreciated by future generations. The late 1960s were more than just a time of cultural revolution. They were an age of horsepower wars. American automakers were locked in a battle not just for sales, but for bragging rights. Pontiac, Dodge, Chevrolet, Ford, all of them were vying to capture the hearts of young drivers who craved performance above all else. In this competitive landscape, the Pontiac GTO stood out not just because of its engine, but because of what it represented. To own a GTO in 1967 was to declare independence. It was a way of saying you didn't just drive, you commanded the road. Unlike luxury cars of the era, which were designed for status and comfort, the GTO was raw and honest. It was about speed, noise, and the thrill of power at your fingertips. Advertisements from the era leaned into this identity. Pontiac proudly dubbed the GTO the Great One, and for good reason. It was the car that defined the muscle car movement. The 1967 model year introduced subtle refinements that distinguished it from earlier versions. Safety regulations had begun to shape design, but Pontiac managed to integrate features like energy-absorbing steering columns and dual-circuit brakes without compromising performance. The car's styling evolved as well, with its signature hidden headlamps and sculpted body lines giving it a more aggressive stance. For many collectors today, the 67 represents the perfect balance of classic muscle car looks and first-generation purity. This particular GTO, with its low mileage and well-preserved condition, feels like a window into that era. Imagine it sitting in a dealership lot in Ohio in the late 1960s. Young buyers, perhaps in their 20s, would have walked past rows of family sedans before stopping in their tracks at the sight of this machine. The deep gleam of its paint, the muscular bulge of its hood, and the unmistakable Pontiac styling. It would have been irresistible. A handshake with a salesman, a set of keys handed over, and the legend began. Fast forward to today, and that same car still carries the aura it did in 1967. Unlike so many of its siblings that were thrashed on drag strips or rusted away in barns, this one survived intact. It is a living time capsule. The interior retains the scent of vintage vinyl. The dashboard instruments echo an analog simplicity long lost in modern vehicles, and the hum of the engine reminds us of a time when performance wasn't just measured in numbers, but in how it made you feel behind the wheel. Southern California became the perfect stage for this GTO's second act. For 25 years, it was driven sparingly yet proudly, shown off at car shows where enthusiasts would gather, sharing stories of their own automotive journeys. At these gatherings, this GTO wasn't just admired for its looks. It was respected for its authenticity. Many cars of its age have been modified, repainted, or rebuilt to the point where their originality is lost. But this one stayed true, preserving its DNA like a fine artifact. Even the mileage tells a story. Just 3,000 miles in 25 years means this car wasn't a commuter, wasn't a grocery getter, and wasn't subjected to the grind of daily use. It was treated like a member of the family, brought out on special occasions, pampered, polished, and put back in safe storage. The numbers-matching drivetrain is more than just a selling point. It's proof of continuity, a direct line back to the day it left the factory. What's striking about the GTO, even today, is how it bridges two worlds. On one hand, it is a brutal machine capable of unleashing raw power with a simple push of the accelerator. On the other, it carries elegance in its design, an artistry in its curves and lines that elevates it above mere performance. It is this duality, brute force wrapped in beauty, that has kept the GTO's reputation alive for nearly 6 decades in a world now dominated by technology, hybrid drivetrains, and electric cars. The 1967 GTO feels almost otherworldly. Sit inside, and there are no screens, no computers, no digital distractions. What greets you instead is a steering wheel connected directly to the front wheels, a clutch that requires real legwork, and a shifter that demands precision from the driver. This car doesn't drive itself. It demands to be driven. For collectors and enthusiasts, this is exactly where the magic lies. Driving a GTO isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about the journey in between. It's the rumble of the V8 engine that shakes the air, the smell of gasoline and oil mixing with leather and vinyl, the sensation of acceleration that presses you into the seat. These experiences remind us of a time when driving was an adventure, not a chore. This particular GTO offers more than just nostalgia. It offers authenticity. In the collector car world, originality is king. Cars that have been over-restored or heavily modified may look stunning, but they often lose their soul in the process. This GTO, by contrast, still carries its original panels, its original engine, and its original spirit. Even the way the doors close with a solid thunk is a reminder of craftsmanship that has long since disappeared from modern assembly lines. To walk around the car today is to appreciate the details. The paint, rich and deep, reflects sunlight like a mirror, catching the eyes of anyone nearby. The chrome trim sparkles with just the right amount of brilliance, framing the car's muscular lines without overwhelming them. The gaps between panels are tight and consistent, a sign that the body has never been abused or mishandled. It is, in every sense of the word, straight. Open the hood, and you're greeted by the heart of the beast, the 400 cubic inch V8. Even at idle, it carries a presence, a low, steady rumble that hints at the power within. Tap the throttle, and the Rochester 4-barrel carburetor feeds the engine with a roar that demands attention. To stand near it is to feel history vibrate through your bones. For 25 years in California, this car played its role as both participant and witness in the car culture of the Golden State. Weekend shows in parking lots, parades of chrome and horsepower along coastal highways, and gatherings where enthusiasts would lean against their cars, swapping stories and admiring each other's machines. This GTO was there, turning heads, sparking conversations, and reminding everyone why the muscle car era remains legendary. But even outside of shows, the GTO held a quieter, more personal significance. For its owner, it was likely more than just a car. It was a memory keeper, a link to youth, a way to relive the thrill of the open road. Cars like these become companions, reflections of the people who care for them. Every mile added to the odometer wasn't just distance traveled, it was a story lived. As we stand today, looking at this 1967 GTO, it's impossible not to think about its future. Who will be its next caretaker? What roads will it travel? What stories will it collect? Classic cars like this don't just change hands. They pass on legacies. Each owner adds a chapter, contributing to the narrative of a machine that outlives generations. In the world of collectors, provenance matters. A documented history of low mileage, original drivetrain, and careful ownership elevates a car from desirable to exceptional. This GTO isn't just a car for someone who wants to own a piece of history. It's a car for someone who understands that they are stepping into a role of stewardship. The responsibility is not simply to drive and enjoy, but to preserve and protect. For younger enthusiasts, encountering this car can be transformative. In an age where driving has become increasingly automated, sitting behind the wheel of a GTO can feel like a revelation. It forces you to engage, to be present, to respect the machine. And in that experience lies its true value, not just as an investment, but as a reminder of what driving used to mean. As the muscle car era fades further into history, cars like this 1967 GTO become ever more precious. They are rolling museums, carrying within them the spirit of an age defined by freedom, rebellion, and speed. Yet they are also alive, not meant to be locked away but to be experienced. Hearing the roar of its V8 on an open road, feeling the pull of acceleration, watching heads turn as it passes. That is the essence of why we love these cars. This GTO, born in Ohio, preserved in California, and now ready for its next chapter, is a rare find. It's not just clean, it's showroom clean. It's not just authentic. It's numbers matching, original and straight. It's not just a car. It's a piece of American history, one that has survived intact for nearly 60 years. To own it is to own more than metal. It is to own a story, a legend, and a responsibility. And for the collector who understands what that means, there can be no greater prize.